Marie Antoinette was born on November 2nd, 1755, in Vienna, Austria. She lived in the beautiful Schönbrunn Palace with her mother, Empress Maria Theresa, and her father, Emperor Francis I. As a little princess, Marie had fine clothes, delicate toys, and servants who looked after her every need. She played in vast gardens full of flowers and fountains. Yet life in the palace was not only play and laughter. From the very first days, Marie learned that being a princess meant discipline and hard work. Each morning, her mother would remind her of her duties. Marie studied languages, German, French, and Italian, and spent hours learning music on the harpsichord and practicing graceful dance steps. She sat at a small desk with tutors who opened thick books of history and etiquette. When she felt tired or bored, they gently scolded her to focus on her lessons. Marie often dreamed of running freely in the gardens, but she knew her family expected her to behave like royalty. When she was 10 years old, Marie's life changed in a single day. Her father, Emperor Francis I, died suddenly. The palace grew silent. The fountains stopped their gentle music, and the laughter of children was replaced by hushed conversations among the courtiers. Marie felt a deep sadness in her heart. She loved her father's kind smile and gentle words. His loss left a void in the palace and in Marie's young life. From that moment on, she understood more clearly the meaning of duty and the weight of responsibility. A few years later, Empress Maria Theresa made a decision that would alter Marie's future forever. To strengthen the alliance between Austria and France, she arranged for her daughter to marry the young heir to the French throne, Louis Augustus. Marie was only 14 when she heard the news. She was both excited and frightened. She had never met Louis, and she knew almost nothing about France. She would soon leave her home, her friends, and her familiar world behind. In the weeks before her departure, Marie's days grew even busier. She attended extra French lessons, practicing simple greetings and polite phrases. "Bonjour, madame," she repeated over and over, working to perfect her accent. Court hairdressers trained her hair into tall, powdered styles, and dentists gently straightened her teeth so that her smile would look perfect. She tried on new dresses in the latest Paris fashion. Marie saw her reflection in the mirror and wondered if she could ever feel at ease in such a different place. On April 21st, 1770, the great carriage awaited her in the palace courtyard. A long line of servants and nobles formed behind it. Marie took a deep breath as she stepped onto the carriage bench. She held a small music box that once belonged to her father. When it opened, it played a soft tune that reminded her of childhood days in Vienna. As the carriage moved through the palace gates, some of her Austrian friends waved handkerchiefs filled with tears. Marie waved back bravely, though her heart was heavy. The journey to France was long and tiring. The carriage rolled through green fields and sleepy villages. At each stopping point, horses were changed, and fresh food was brought for the travelers. At night, Marie looked out at dark forests and bright stars. She felt both lonely and determined. She thought of her mother's words. "My daughter, remember your duty. You carry the hopes of our nation." Marie held those words close to her heart and tried to feel courage instead of fear. When the carriage crossed the border into France, Austrian guards saluted, and French officers took their place. Marie realized that from this moment on, her life would be very different. She closed her eyes and imagined the grand city of Paris beyond the hills. "I am no longer Maria Antonia of Austria," she whispered softly. "I am now Marie Antoinette, future Queen of France." Her childhood in Austria had ended. A new chapter was about to begin. As the carriage rolled forward, Marie fixed her gaze on the road ahead and took a quiet breath. She did not yet know all the challenges she would face, but she resolved to be brave. She was a princess stepping into the unknown, ready to learn, to grow, and to fulfill her duty with grace and hope. Marie Antoinette arrived at the Palace of Versailles on a bright morning in May 1770. As the carriage rolled through the tall gates, she saw long rows of soldiers and courtiers standing at attention. The air was filled with the sound of trumpets and cheering crowds. She stepped down onto the marble courtyard, feeling both proud and nervous. Everything around her looked grand and new. She carried in her hands a small portrait of her family in Vienna. It helped her feel brave. Her first meeting with Louis Augustus, who would soon become King Louis XVI, was a quiet moment in a busy day. He stood behind a golden screen, dressed in a suit decorated with silver threads. Marie curtsied low and said softly, "Bonjour, monsieur." Louis bowed in return and replied, "Bonjour, madame." Their voices were gentle and a little shy. Neither of them knew what to say next, so they smiled politely. In that simple greeting, they began a new life together. The wedding took place on May 16, 1770, in the royal chapel at Versailles. Marie wore a white silk dress with pearls sewn along the neckline and tiny diamonds in her hair. Louis wore a coat of gold and blue, with a heavy collar and shining buttons. The chapel was filled with candles that lit up the high ceilings and carved statues. When Marie walked down the aisle, all eyes followed her each step. She felt her heart beat fast. She heard the soft rustle of silk dresses and the hush of the crowd. At the front, Louis waited and took her hand. They exchanged rings and promises, but Marie felt as if she were in a dream. Afterward, a grand feast was served. Tables were piled high with roast meats, fresh fruits, and sweet pastries. Music and dancing followed, but Marie's mind was full of questions. Would she ever feel at home here? Life at the French court was very different from anything Marie had known in Austria. In Vienna, she could walk freely in the gardens and play music whenever she pleased. At Versailles, every movement was watched and judged. A princess had to follow strict rules. She learned that she must enter rooms only when invited. She had to speak in a soft voice and always look graceful. If she forgot a rule, someone would whisper behind her back. Marie felt as if she were walking on a narrow path with no room to make a mistake. Each morning began with a precise routine. She wore a silk dress chosen by the ladies of the court, and her hair was styled into tall curls and powdered white. Servants helped her put on jewelry and pins. Then she joined a long line of courtiers in the Hall of Mirrors, where she practiced walking so that her dress would glide smoothly across the floor. She greeted nobles one by one, learning each name and title. When she spoke, she practiced using polite phrases. She tried to say, "It is an honor to meet you," in clear French. She remembered her mother's lessons, but it took time to feel at ease. Even with these lessons, Marie often felt lonely. Louis spent much of his day hunting in the vast parks outside Versailles or meeting with ministers about the affairs of state. He was gentle and kind but distant. Marie tried to start conversations asking, "How was the hunt today?" He would answer in a soft voice, and then the moment passed. She walked through the grand halls by herself, looking at the painted ceilings and gilded walls. She missed her brother and sister who were far away, and she longed for a friend who could share her thoughts. To find a place of comfort, Marie created a small, secret village on the palace grounds called the Queen's Hamlet. It had tiny cottages with thatched roofs, a little farm, and a small lake. There, she dressed in a simple linen dress and straw hat. She could pick flowers, feed chickens, and walk quietly among the trees. The courtiers thought it was odd for a queen to live like a peasant, but Marie felt free. In that peaceful corner of Versailles, she could forget her duties for a moment and remember who she was before all the rules. Over time, Marie learned to balance her new life. She attended balls and state dinners, smiling and dancing with grace. She practiced French each day, and her accent grew softer. She made a few close friends among the other young women at court. They spoke in private rooms, sharing laughter and stories. Marie also worked to help others. She visited the poor in nearby villages, offering food and small gifts. She hoped that her kindness would show the people that she cared about their lives. Despite her efforts, rumors began to spread about her spending on clothes and parties. Some blamed her for the nation's financial troubles. Marie tried not to let the whispers hurt her. She remembered her mother's advice, to act with dignity and to learn from every challenge. In her heart, she believed that one day the people of France would see her true intentions. As Marie Antoinette looked out across the palace gardens each evening, she saw the golden light of sunset on the fountains. She felt both the weight of her crown and the gentle breeze of hope. She was still learning, still growing, and still finding her place in a world of endless rules and shining splendor. In that delicate balance, the young queen discovered her own strength and began to shape her life at the French court. By the late 1780s, France faced a severe crisis. Bread prices rose, and many families went hungry. The people blamed the king and queen for their troubles. In May 1789, King Louis XVI called together representatives from the three estates, clergy, nobility, and common people, to find solutions. The common people, known as the Third Estate, felt ignored. On June 20th, they declared themselves the National Assembly and vowed to write a new constitution. Tension grew until July 14th, when Paris crowds stormed the Bastille prison. This event marked the beginning of the French Revolution. Once safe inside the golden gates of Versailles, Marie Antoinette saw the anger on the faces of her subjects. In October 1789, thousands of hungry women marched from Paris to Versailles, shouting for bread and justice. The royal family was forced to leave their beloved palace and move to the Tuileries in Paris. Here, Marie lived under constant guard. She watched the gardens of Versailles fade behind her as the carriage rolled away, her children at her side. In June 1791, the royal family attempted to escape. They disguised themselves as common travelers and boarded a fast carriage. Marie wore a simple brown dress, and Louis pretended to be a servant. They hoped to reach the border and find safety in Austria. But at the small town of Varennes, local officials recognized the king. The family was arrested and brought back to Paris. Many saw this as a betrayal. The trust between the people and their monarchs was broken forever. In December 1792, Louis XVI faced trial for treason. Marie could only listen from her prison cell. In January 1793, the National Convention found him guilty and sentenced him to death. On January 21st, Louis climbed the steps to the guillotine with calm dignity. From her window, Marie heard the crowd's shouts and the final silence. Marie Antoinette remained imprisoned in the Conciergerie. In October 1793, she stood trial on charges of conspiracy and even harming her own children. She defended herself with courage, saying that no mother could do such harm. Despite her words, she was condemned. On October 16, 1793, Marie walked to the scaffold with her head held high. Her final moments showed her strength and grace. Although her life ended in tragedy, Marie Antoinette's story lives on. Her daughter, Marie Thérèse, later worked to restore her mother's memory. Artists and writers around the world continue to tell the tale of a queen who faced revolution with resilience. Through her life and loss, students learn about the power of hope, courage, and the human spirit in times of great change. In the story of Marie Antoinette, we have followed the journey of a young princess who left her home in Austria to become Queen of France. We saw her childhood filled with luxury and learning. We felt her sadness when her father died, and her courage when she prepared for a political marriage. In Versailles, she faced strict rules, loneliness, and the challenge of adapting to a new court. She created a small hamlet to find peace and showed kindness by helping the poor. Yet as France slipped into crisis, she watched the people's anger grow. She and her family tried to escape, but were captured. Her husband was executed, and she stood trial with great dignity before meeting her own tragic end. Through triumphs and tragedies, Marie Antoinette's life reminds us of the power of resilience, the cost of misunderstanding, and the strength it takes to face great change. From her story, we learn a deep lesson. True strength comes not from wealth or position, but from the way we respond to hardship. In today's world, we may not face revolutions or royal trials, but we all meet challenges, lost jobs, illness, or conflict with others. When we feel overwhelmed, we can remember Marie Antoinette's bravery in the face of fear. We can seek small moments of peace, like she did in her private hamlet, and we can help others with simple acts of kindness. We can choose honesty and courage over panic, and we can find hope in learning from every difficulty. Thank you for listening to this story all the way through. By doing so, you have practiced your English listening skills, learned new words, and discovered how history can inspire us. Now let us test your memory and understanding with a quick quiz. Which event directly caused the royal family to move from Versailles to Paris? A. The storming of the Bastille. B. The Women's March for Bread. Please comment your answer A or B below to let us know what you remember. Your comments help our channel grow and show us which parts of the story resonated with you. If you enjoyed this lesson, please subscribe to our channel. Your subscription gives us the motivation to create more high-quality English listening stories for you. We also welcome small donations to help cover our production costs. In these early days, every contribution makes a difference and allows us to continue offering free content to support your English learning. Thank you for your support and for being part of our community.